Hello everybody. So in this video what I'd like to do is just take a few moments to take a look at this map and kind of do a critique of a Choropleth map that exemplifies a lot of the mistakes that you can make when making a Choropleth map. This is a genuine Choropleth map that I saw in a PowerPoint presentation that someone was giving not too long ago, and so when I saw it I said, oh, look at all the different things that are wrong with this map. And so I went back and I found the map online, and I've been using it as an example in my classes ever since. And I'm not going to reveal where I got it from, and I removed the sort of identifying information from it. But this is the kind of thing that you do see out there in the world, and so we're going to work on improving it and not making the same mistakes. So let's talk about what we see here. Well, the first thing I did notice here is that we have the word map in the title. I mean, we're missing a lot of the elements that we want to have in a map, like we don't have projection information and so forth. So all of the kinds of technical information that I'm requiring are not present on here, but I did notice that they have the word map in here. This is student population map, June 30th, 2011. This is the population of a student population of a school. Where does a school's students come from? And so they don't need the word map here. Everybody can see that this is a map. So student population June 30th, 2011 would have been just fine. So let's get rid of the word map here. But let's take a look at what I really want to emphasize is the color choice here, because they've broken one of the most fundamental rules of Choropleth mapping that you can. So this is supposed to be a quantitative Choropleth map. We are trying to show, or they are trying to show, the distribution of students going from a low value to a high value. But you do not get that impression by looking at this map. As soon as I look at this map, with a Choropleth map like this, I'm supposed to understand very intuitively, very instinctively, very easily, where do the most students come from and where do the least students come from. In order to do that, what should you do? This kind of map should be using a gradation of colors. We should be using one color, we should be using one hue, but we should be using shades and tints of that same color, that same hue. So we really want to go from a very light shade of some color to a much darker shade in order to imply most and least. But that's not what's going on right here, is it? When I look at this map, I don't have any way of intuitively understanding where the most students are. As it happens, this color right here is most. But I have to really consult the legend for this. Of course, we want to be able to consult the legend. We want to have the legend. But you want the person to instinctively understand how the map works. And so I really have to look over here to find out, okay, so this navy right here, that's where the most students come from. Okay, and then it gets even less instinctive when I say, hey, here is this gold color. That's where the least students come from. It's not intuitive that gold is less than navy blue. And let me also point out, I don't know how it's coming through on this screen, but it's important to think about how colors are going to be represented, because when I first saw this map on a PowerPoint presentation, the PowerPoint presentation that was being given, I thought that this color was black. This navy color was black, but it's actually a navy color. So whenever you are giving a presentation, when you're preparing a map for a presentation or any kind of media, you have to be aware of the fact that the map, how the colors are going to look on the map in the particular format that's going to be displayed in. So if they really wanted this to look navy, they didn't do a good job for the purposes of a PowerPoint presentation, at least, because it looks black. So you have to be aware of that. So then continuing to look over here in the legend, I find that this light blue color, that means second least number of students, and then this darker blue color, but not as dark as the navy, that means second most students, and then this red color right here, which typically means warning, or can mean warning, or, it jumps out at you, and I think that red does sort of jump out at me when I've got, when I look up here at this map, I kind of look to where the red is. It kind of pops more than the other colors, maybe the gold as well. But then I find that the red down here, that actually means the middle value. So there's no logical order to the coloring. I think that what happened here, I think that these colors are the school's colors. And so they decided to create this Choropleth map using the school's colors rather than an intuitive a color gradation of one of these. So they went with kind of an artistic effect, or they tried an artistic effect, but as a result, they compromised the integrity of the map and what it's trying to show. This map also brings up another point about Choropleth maps that is important to consider, and that's that Choropleth maps are typically not used or shouldn't be used to map total values. Okay, so we can map something. There are other thematic mapping techniques to map total values. And what's the difference, or what's the other option from mapping total values? Well, mapping some kind of ratio. And there are thematic mapping techniques that are best for mapping total values, and thematic maps that are best for mapping ratios of some kind. And Choropleth maps are typically used for, or should be used for, mapping ratios and not total values. But total values is what we're showing here. We're showing the total number of students that come from each particular state. And of course, they've even put the label on here to show you from each particular state how many students there are. So we're talking about a total number of students from each one of these states. Why should they reconsider mapping total values here? Well, this is important information. How many total students do they have from each state? Okay, you might want to know that, but I can think of two other things they might want to map instead that might give me a much better idea of where the students are coming from this particular school. I would be interested in knowing two different things. I would be interested in knowing two different sort of ratios, and this is a percent of total population per state. Because, okay, I know that there are 2,549 students here in California, but there are also a lot of people in California. How does that compare to Arizona, which has 607, or New Mexico, which has 152, or, North Dakota has 22, South Dakota over here has 58, but there are also a lot less people in North and South Dakota, and Montana over here and Wyoming has 214. There aren't a lot of people in Wyoming. So I would be interested, as a percentage of the total population of each state, where are all of the students coming from? Because it could be the case that as a percentage of the population of each particular state, that you have a lot of students coming from Wyoming. That could be, a hot spot, or North Dakota, or South Dakota. Or how does that compare to Oregon? It's very difficult for me to know where the students are coming from as a percentage of the population, because I just have total values here. Yes, because it's not the case that the population of the United States is equally distributed across each one of these states. Population of each state is highly variable. So because the population of each state is highly variable, I have a hard time figuring out where they actually draw students from and why. Look over here. Georgia got a high number over here, got a high number over here as well. But I know that I can't directly compare those because population of each state is different. So I would be very interested in knowing percent of total population, and that would be a much better thing to map with a Choropleth map than this total value. Another ratio that I would be interested in is not total population of the state, that's the total population of the state over here, but I would be interested in the percent of students enrolled. So it does tell me the total student population is 2,566 for the entire campus. So I would be very interested in knowing, well, now which one of these states has the highest percentage students across the United States for all of their total enrollment. So it might be that one state has a very high enrollment based on the percent of its total population, but it might be that other states have very high representation at the school that might be disproportionate to the population of the state, but are highly represented in the student population as a whole. And then maybe you want to know why that is. Where is their market? What students are they most reaching out to? So I would be interested in what percentage of the students are enrolled as well. This would also be a ratio, and it would be a much better thing to show on a Choropleth map than these total values. So I think that this map is ineffective on a few different levels. It definitely has its problems, and I want you to not make the same mistakes when you're making Choropleth maps and trying to communicate information. I don't think that this map is effective at communicating the information that it should be communicating or that it wants to communicate. Probably what has happened here, it's very common for maps to be thought of as graphics, and this is very unfortunate. So oftentimes maps will be produced by a graphic artist, and in my personal opinion, I think that anyone who's going to be a graphic artist should have exposure to cartography as a discipline, should take a class in cartography just so that he or she understands map making, because it does seem rather common for graphic artists to create maps or be responsible for map creation for something like this. This was just in a publication, a report for this school, probably created by a graphic artist, probably not exposed to Choropleth map theory, and as a result created this map that is ineffective. So I always encourage anyone who is interested in graphic design to get exposure to at least cartography on a fundamental level, so that the graphic designers understand that maps are also scientific documents. They have techniques that you need to follow for different kinds of thematic maps especially, and you can't just think of them in a graphic kind of artistic situation, because this is the kind of result that you sometimes get. Okay, well, all right, let's move on.